For decades, entire industries were built around controlling access. If you wanted the information, the inventory, or the transaction, you had to go through a gatekeeper. That model worked until it didn't. What we're seeing now isn't chaos or collapse. It's something far more predictable. It's the sunset of gatekeeping as a business model. And real estate isn't special here. It's simply arriving later than everyone else. We have touched on this topic in past episodes, but it's always worth repeating with a slightly different twist. My name is Steve Colano, and this is Confidential Remarks. Every industry that depends on information asymmetry eventually faces the same reckoning. When technology democratizes access, the old defenses surface. The same arguments get recycled, and the same fears are projected onto consumers. We saw it with travel agents in the 90s. We saw it with stockbrokers in the early 2000s. And now we're watching real estate replay the script almost line for line. The details change, but the behavior never does. Disruption doesn't happen all at once. It follows a sequence. First, access is controlled. Then complexity is used as a shield. Alternatives are shamed or dismissed. Transparency starts winning, prices compress. And finally, the industry splits between what can be automated and what actually requires judgment. Once you recognize this pattern, you can't unsee it. And more importantly, you can't stop it. Airlines once insisted that consumers couldn't be trusted to book their own travel. Pricing was opaque. Access was restricted, and agents framed themselves as irreplaceable experts. Then transparency arrived. Expedia, Priceline, and Orbitz didn't destroy travel. They removed the toll booth, commissions vanished, and consumers chose control. The lesson is simple. Access was never the value. It was the leverage. Stockbrokers followed the same arc. Trades were expensive, research was proprietary, and investors were told they needed a broker to participate at all. Then pricing collapsed. Execution became free, and advice, real advice, became the premium. The winners weren't the ones defending commissions. They were the ones who repositioned as fiduciaries and problem solvers. Taxi medallions were designed to create scarcity. Fewer licenses meant higher prices and protected incumbents. Safety concerns were used to frame alternatives as dangerous. Consumers disagreed. They chose convenience, transparency, and accountability. The monopoly didn't survive, but transportation did. It simply evolved. Insurance relied on complexity as a moat. Pricing was hidden. Comparisons were discouraged. Consumers were told it was all too confusing to navigate alone. Online quote engines changed that overnight. What survived wasn't the old sales model, but advisory expertise. The industry split cleanly between transactional sales and consultative risk management. Newspapers believed they owned distribution. Classifieds were a monopoly. Advertising followed by default. Craigslist and Google didn't attack journalism. They removed artificial control. What remained was a harder truth. Content had to justify itself. Exposure was no longer scarce. Every gatekeeper reaches for the same playbook. They claim consumers will be confused. They label high fees as industry standard. They reframe facts as opinions. And instead of debating alternatives, they attack them. This reaction isn't confidence, it's fear. Specifically, fear of transparency. The noise is getting louder because the conditions are converging. Home prices have exploded while commissions stayed fixed. Consumers have full access to data. Legal scrutiny is increasing. And anti-competitive behaviors are being exposed in daylight. This isn't strength. It's the final defense before the split. Every disrupted industry ends the same way. One path becomes a commodity, automated, standardized, and price compressed. The other becomes advisory, focused on judgment, emotional intelligence, and complex decision-making. Advisory work survives, transactional monopolies don't. Just like stock trading, real estate pricing will separate from asset price. Execution becomes flat fee or automated. Advice becomes premium, retained, or hourly. This was never about discounting. It was always about who controls choice. Gatekeepers always lose when consumers gain transparency. Being paid for access is over. Being paid for advice is just beginning. Adapt to the advisory model or fade alongside the gatekeepers who refuse to evolve. This analysis is grounded in historical precedent, cross-industry disruption patterns, and the documented decline of access-based business models. The conclusion isn't radical, it's inevitable. This has been Confidential Remarks.